views and opinions expressed within the following program are solely those of the individual. These views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of Shaw TV.
Hey Calgary, I'm Kevin Chorney. Today's April 18th, and this is Calgary Now. Pop culture, or popular entertainment, tends to recycle ideas and borrow them from other cultures and genres. It's no surprise to anyone who pays attention to pop culture that comic books, video games, and books that were once considered underground and obscure are now inspiration for television shows and movies. Nerd culture, as it's sometimes referred to, is no longer reserved for people who discovered a comic or a show and obsessed over it with a small group of like-minded people. These small groups have grown exponentially now that people can connect on websites and forums and find common ground with TV shows like Big Bang Theory and Community airing on major networks. What was once cause for scorn is now the norm and quite possibly finally getting its due for creativity and originality. All right, so the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo is right around the corner, which means once again, thousands of Trekkies, comic book gurus, anime fans, and sci-fi lovers will congregate in a celebration of their passion. This event is huge in Calgary, with a weekend-long expo expecting to bring out 60,000 people. So big, in fact, that last year people were turned away at the door. Now, back in the day, this sort of gathering wasn't heard of. Fast forward a few years, and nerd culture is the new mainstream. To many, geek chic is the new cool, whether it's geek-friendly TV, superhero infatuation, rare comic book collectibles, or online role-playing games with millions of subscribers. Chances are there's a bit of nerd in many of us. My guest tonight and I are about to sit down and discuss the changing face of nerd culture. We welcome you to join our discussion by calling 403-539-6710 or shoot us a tweet at Calgary Now Show. Stay with us.
I think when we're talking nerd culture and the Comic Book Expo and everything, I think that that's awesome. I attended last year, I plan on going again this year, and things like The Walking Dead and, you know, superheroes and DC comics and stuff like that, I think they're great. I appreciate it from an artistic perspective. I think that really if you're somebody who appreciates the arts, it's something that's interesting and stimulating to attend, so I think it's great. And nowadays, you know, nerd culture and whatever, it's all blurring anyway, so it's all pretty cool. I think it's great.
Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show. Tonight we have Emily Expo from the Calgary Comic Expo and Brian Batista, an artist, educator, self-proclaimed nerd. Guys, thanks a lot for joining us tonight. Brian, first off, tell me a little bit about yourself.
There's lots of things. I don't know where to start, but yeah, definitely super nerd. I think like you know, I'm on the kind of on the fringes of the mainstream with art. I'm also a co-founder of the Calgary Underground Film Festival, which is happening right now.
Right now, that's right.
And after the show, I'm going to be going down to the theater to watch some awesome non-mainstream underground films.
Cool. Cool.
And this year I got a booth at the Comic Expo, same as last year, and I'm going to be in their art book. So hopefully people will come by and visit me at my table.
Pseudo-celebrity right here. Rock and roll. Emily, I want to know all about the Calgary Expo.
Where would you like to start?
Start from the beginning.
From the beginning, we're going to our 8th year.
Wow.
It's the second largest pop culture convention in all of Canada. So we are rivaled only by the one in Toronto, which speaks very, very highly of the show.
Now, why is it? Why is it that it's, I mean, 60,000 people expected to get out there this weekend. It was hugely popular last year.
Yep.
What is unique about Calgary that brings so many people down to the venue?
We just have a lot of passionate fans in the city. I think this is something that Calgary obviously has a very corporate angle to it, and there's a lot of people here who are passionate about the arts, passionate about film, passionate about entertainment and creativity and imagination, all these things. And the Calgary Expo really encapsulates all of those things. And so finally we have people crawling out of the woodwork being like, I'm totally into this, and I didn't realize that other people were too. And it's growing and snowballing. It's really great to see.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. Now, I got to touch on it real quick off the bat here. Last year, people showed up, could not get in the building. Is there a plan in place to ensure that's not going to happen this year for our viewers?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. First of all, we have a hard capacity this year, which means that we have actually sold out ahead of time, and there will be no tickets on sale.
At
tickets
the door. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's really number one. So we can really monitor our capacity much better this time. We have the upper and lower level of the Big Four on top of the BMO Center, on top of the Corral, on top of having the Palomino rooms. So we have a lot more space this year. We have an external security company, all different things that we're doing to contribute to the comfort and safety of our fans, because that really is the #1 priority for us.
Perfect. I think you put a lot of people's hearts and minds at rest right there.
Absolutely.
Now, Brian, as a self-proclaimed nerd, I need to know, what makes a nerd? Is it a frame of mind? Is it a lifestyle? Is it an exaggerated passion for story, fantasy? What makes a nerd a nerd?
I think you're dead on there. Like, I think it has to do with, I mean, Bill Gates made it cool to be a nerd, so like nerds are cool now. So I get to kind of be cool in my own coolness. But it has to do with being passionate and interested in things that I think aren't the norm. And then, of course, you know, like when I was young and Nirvana got popular, all of a sudden I didn't like them anymore, kind of thing. Like you kind of
it's really countercultural.
You hold it to yourself. It's important to you and your group of friends. You know, like I'm really into the cosplay thing, and I don't really think that's going to blow up anytime soon. So I'll still be wearing a rabbit suit. You know what I mean? But as soon as everyone's wearing one, I think I will have moved on. And I think nerds kind of find those avenues in order to express themselves.
The exclusivity.
But we don't. We're not trying to push people out of it. We want people to like what we're into.
Okay.
But you'll see that the nuances and little details, you know, like even on Threads or Reddit, like people are really into what they're into. Yeah. To almost a degree that's unhealthy.
Like a lifestyle.
It's totally
like
a
over
lifestyle.
the top type thing.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I mean, no one's getting hurt. They're enjoying themselves. Who's to say it's wrong? Now, what's different though, nerd culture nowadays from say 10 years ago? I mean, when I'm growing up, the nerd is the, what's the quintessential
math,
guy getting a hard time in school, whatnot. 10 years, fast forward, we've seen, with the advent of the internet, I suppose, a huge change in how the nerds perceive. What's the main differences that you think are observed?
I would say a big factor in it is sheer confidence. The internet, as you say, big factor in it. People are now able to find people of like mind. They're no longer feeling isolated. I was bullied as a child because I liked Star Trek. What a stupid thing to bully somebody for. It's ridiculous. Right? But had I had another group of friends who were also into it, I probably would have had much more confidence growing up than I did because of that. And now people can find these havens, these pockets of people that have their interest. And one of the things I love about the Calgary Expo is that you can have all these different interests and find new interests, and it's okay.
It sounds like it's almost a developmental tool. I mean, you're clearly, confident woman. Here you are on television, lovely outfit, speaking on behalf of the Expo. What do you think, Brian? How has it changed in your eyes in 10 years?
Yeah, I'd say for sure that you hit the nail on the head with the confidence thing there. It's out in the open. Yeah. But it's also still kind of uncool to be nerdy, which is good for us. Like once that's gone, it's like, I think people are discovering their individuality to it. And a lot of things that I see, like I dressed up as a pirate, and it's like, here's a guy dressed silly, but it gave people a way to access me and talk to me. And not only that, I found that a lot of, these are younger teenagers too who are really into this stuff. And it's giving them self-confidence and their identity, at that age, that's super important.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A sense of belonging, it sounds like. The internet, though. I mean, these kids that were, at one point, very isolated. Maybe you have a small group of friends, some Dungeons and Dragons, or whatever the medium choice might be at the time, can now connect over continents, seemingly through the internet. How has that evolved the nerd?
Well, it's made an exponential difference. Absolutely. I mean, you're not having to share your passion amongst yourself and your 3 friends. You're sharing your passion essentially with the rest of the world, and you have an opinion and you have a voice, and that's something at that age that is so important. You want to be heard. You want to feel that you're unique, but you're also the same as everybody else at the same time, and all these complex things growing up. And the internet really just provides that soapbox for you to just be like, yeah, this is who I am, and that's totally cool. I am not a freak. I'm not a weirdo, because there's 10 million other people that love what I love.
Nerd crack. Absolutely. It's nerd crack. It gives you the ability to just produce. So what happens is these subcultures grow into something like an amoeba. At first it might just be an anime cartoon, and all of a sudden people are naming themselves their favorite characters on Facebook, and they develop this whole reality almost like another individual.
And there's the access as well. Now people have access to things that they never would have had before. You know, anime coming right from Japan. That before, you know, the only way that you would get that is if it was being released via Disney or something like that. You know, and now people are able to really dig and find the things that they're passionate about.
And is that half? That's probably half the fun. Is digging around to find that obscure picture of that comic that you can't get, you know, locally, that you have to buy on eBay or whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how much time do people spend on iTunes just looking for different music? And really, it's no different if you're into comics or gaming or horror or whatever. It's the exact same process, the exact same thing, just a different medium.
One of the mediums that's hugely popular in nerd culture is video games, of course. Yeah. Specifically, I'm going to drop a title, there you go. Wow, World of Warcraft. Now this it's a fascinating game. I'm sure you're both familiar with it. For our viewers, if you're not, World of Warcraft is 10 million people playing online. It's a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. So we got people, doctors, lawyers, high school dropouts, you name it, across the gamut, playing this game. What is it about that medium, about that game, that draws so many?
Community, story arc. It's enticing. You can be social and you can live in this your own fictional world at the same time, kind of live out this life that you never would get to experience otherwise. There's quite a bit that would be appealing about it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's like those sim games and stuff like that. Except you can actually talk to people and be like, I'm killing you, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So it's communication and it's fantasy, is it not?
Yeah.
Role play, in the true sense of the word. Is it healthy?
Well, like anything in moderation, right? If you're going to sit in the basement for 16 hours a day and play World of Warcraft, I'm not going to hold judgment against you. But I mean, at that point, you know, look at your life. Is it constructive? Are you healthy? Are you happy? How's your family? How's your friends? Do you have friends? Like things like this, and that really has to be up to each individual's discretion, you know. And like anything, you can take things too far.
Yeah, sure, Brian.
I'm sure it's very addictive as well because it's fulfilling those needs. But you know, that's on the individual basis of their mental stability, most likely.
Do you think maybe there's this, I guess, a nerd quality about people that they want to have that sense of community outside of the 9-to-5 job, the people in their immediate vicinity, in the real world?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially in the corporate world where it's suit, tie, 9 to 5, dress code, you know, lots of red tape that you have to jump through, fill out this form, fill out that form, you know, and people want to feel some sense of freedom, some sense of individuality outside of that. And, you know, I have a lot of friends who have their suit and tie jobs, but then, you know, tons of tattoos right underneath, and they have to hide it every day. And it's nice to come home and not have to hide anymore.
There's the other thing, though, that's human nature. When we were, you know, bipedal cave people, we were sitting around telling stories or painting on cave walls. I mean, that developed into comic book or friezes or, you know, Egyptian hieroglyphs. So this is just innate in man's nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's progression is what it is.
Yeah.
Folks, we're going to take a quick break, check out what our rant pack has to say. Stay with us.
Having grown up as a nerd in elementary school, not having a lot of friends but reading a lot of comic books, drawing my own comic books, which thankfully will never see the light of day, I can appreciate the fact that nerd culture is now being embraced by the greater society as a whole. That being said, part of me is a little sad that singular thing that I had is now out there at the masses. That being said, the fact that people who previously were isolated aren't so much anymore. They're not just having to rely on jocks for their defense.
I think nerd culture is absolutely amazing. I like the fact that it's becoming popular, and it's not only popular, but it's cool now. You know, so with the Comic Expo coming to Calgary, I tried to go last year. It was absolutely packed. You saw people of all persuasions there. You didn't have to be necessarily a nerd. You didn't have to know a lot about computers. You just had to appreciate the culture, the costumes, the comics, the speakers. All that was absolutely awesome. I'm glad that Calgary has that as something to offer them other than just having cowboys in the Stampede. So it's a good thing.
Hey Calgary, welcome back. Tonight we're talking about nerd culture and how it's evolved. Don't forget, if you want to get involved in the discussion, shoot us a tweet or give us a phone call. Now, there's sports nerds out there. Okay, nerds, I know people that know far too much about all sports, about hockey in particular, and they don't even own a pair of skates. Is there not a bit of nerd maybe in all of us?
I would agree with that. I mean, being a nerd, it doesn't have to be limited,
Yeah.
I think, to comic books or science fiction or whatever, name it. You can have cooking nerds. You can have people who are, it's just being so passionate about something that you're just absorbed in it. And that's really what it's about.
You'd agree, Brian?
Oh, I totally agree. Art, like my example, the people I love is the art nerds. They're just crazy about it. But sometimes that goes into science and mathematics, you know?
Yeah.
And then I think, you know, back to Revenge of the Nerds, maybe where this whole like naming started, the jocks were the nerds too at the end of the end of the films, you know?
The business of, sorry, you were going to say.
Well, I mean, that's a really great example. The jocks really were the nerds, and that was also a very clear division growing up. You had your jocks, you had your the drama enthusiasts, and you had your nerds. And sometimes there was crossover between the drama enthusiasts and the nerds, but never ever with the jocks.
Yeah.
And I mean, ultimately, we're all just passionate about the things that we
See,
love.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, though. I mean, like growing up, I played hockey. I was really involved in sports, but you know, I also took a drama class in high school, whatnot, junior high even as well.
Speaking strictly from my own experience, and I love that it was different for you. For me, it was very much segmented that way, and I personally would like to see it so that, you know, everybody can appreciate what everybody else likes and also learn.
Yeah, give yourself
from
a
it.
shot at it, right?
Yeah, give it a shot.
Enjoy it,
you know, like maybe the jock over here doesn't know that he might actually really be into Spider-Man if he doesn't try it, and that's what I love about the convention.
I mean, you guys probably know better than me, though. Like today's youth, are we seeing that transformation? Are we seeing more of an open mind about accepting the fact that, you know, you might like to play football and I might like to sit in the corner and do my drawings or whatnot? Like, are people finally kind of coming together and sort of kicking that stigma to the curb of that segregation?
In an ideal world, I would love to say yes.
It's not happening.
You know, unfortunately, I think kids are going to be kids, and high school is going to be high school, and there's always going to be your bullies and whatnot, and it's a sad, unfortunate thing. I don't think it's something that kids can just get over, being bullied and abused in school, but. Yeah, I'd love to see a change in that for sure.
Now, the business end of nerddom, if I can use that term. I mean, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, superhero movies, unheard of, right? I mean, there was the original Batman, you know, remember the Jim Carrey? Not so good, right? A lot of them went direct to the VHS way back in the day. But now, I mean, the blockbuster movie standard has been set by superhero movies.
Well, you look at what Marvel's doing.
Oh my goodness,
it's intense.
Yeah.
It is intense.
Which is also, by the way, Avengers created by another giant nerd. It's creating stuff for nerds for more nerds.
And that the whole, I guess the stigma of, the nerds in mom's basement, you know, watching Spider-Man, there's no way anymore. I mean, it's not cheap to be a proper nerd.
No.
You know, if you want to go and get the gear, the garb, the collectibles, I mean, it's a huge business.
It's a huge business. I mean, ask any cosplayer. I mean, some of these steampunk costumes that we see, elaborate and expensive.
Steampunk, help me out.
So that's, if you take the Victorian era and mix it with a little bit of the industrial side of things, you'll come up with steampunk. It's an incredible style.
That's
it's just
cool.
beautiful.
It's hot.
Yeah.
It's hot.
Yeah.
So this is cosplay.
Oh yeah.
Cosplay for our viewers is costume play.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Now, you cosplay yourself?
I have at least 8 costumes. In fact, I think I have more costumes than regular clothes. But I don't dress up as anime figures, and that tends to be the way it goes. And I was doing it before I knew the term cosplay. And there's also this thing called furries, which are mascot.
I actually know what furries. Okay. You can elaborate on furries.
I know. They might beat me up if I do. So I will say they're fantastic to hug.
Yeah. Into some odd things.
When the hat's on.
Okay, so with your 8 different costumes, then these are things that you've conjured yourself. These costumes.
Yeah, I built. Yeah, and I have a rule: no plastic.
Oh,
so
wow,
you know, like I have my pirate costume, real sword. Real leather boots.
Well,
so I'm serious about it. The jacket I have was like $300.
So where's the motivation though? Is there a story that you've kind of concocted behind each of your characters?
No.
There's not?
No, I think with a pirate, you just,
it's
bring it
art.
out. Yeah.
It's an art form like anything else. You're creating a spectacle just as you would a painting or writing a book. You are creating something complete and beautiful.
Oh, they're elaborate. I mean, I've seen some of the photos. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the gear that some of these people are wearing and the man hours involved.
Yeah.
You know, I can only, and they make them themselves. That's important to note, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking maybe a few hundred hours to put together, and the money.
See, the difference is 10 years ago, guys are flipping through cardboard boxes, looking through plastic sleeves for that comic book.
Yeah.
Well, now they're in their basement and they're getting skills, and it's like almost like a do-it-yourself culture. You know, and they're building something for themselves. You know, maybe they're not collecting the book and it's secret and hiding. They're like, you know,
it's me
building a giant foam sword to chop their friends down in a park on Sunday.
This is the other thing now. What's the name?
LARPing.
Live action role play.
Yeah.
Now this is something that's growing in popularity as of late. This is okay. Well, again, for our viewers,
It's like rugby.
it's kind of sorta, I suppose. It's a lot like Warcraft, I guess, which we touched on, but in the flesh.
Yep.
So how does that work? Is there different factions? Do you get on the ring and everyone meets for a battle, quasi battle? How's it go? I have no idea.
Yeah, they've got rules and everything, and it's like Dungeons and Dragons in the flesh, and you know, people are really serious about it, and you know, I've done it, and it's super fun.
Yeah?
I did it at Burning Man, and it was a Star Wars fight of thousands of people with lightsabers, but I was on bike, so I had a huge advantage. I just rode by and just sliced everyone up. It was a lot of fun.
So a lot of people are clearly doing this all over the world.
And yeah, and I mean, you're not trying to hurt anybody, for sure. I mean, these things are foam padded and whatnot, but yeah, I'd do it again in an instant.
It's fascinating. I think it's fantastic. Okay, back to the expo though. How many people do you think are coming in the door? Is there a good contingent of people that are walking in the door that are kind of using that expo as their sort of nerd out of the closet ambassador?
Oh, so many.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, I mean, we were talking to one guy who, he was walking down the hallway at the show, and he works at a bar downtown, and he was running into colleagues from the bar, but neither of them had actually said that they were going to the show because they didn't want to like out themselves. So it comes into this whole, you're into this too?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Like, and and people they're being outed.
And I don't get it though. I mean, if it is as mainstream as people kind of perceive it to be, I mean, clearly you think people would be just go, yeah, I'm going to Comic Expo this week.
Yep.
Why is it still carrying that stigma?
Because it takes time. It's one of those things. I mean, we're talking decades and decades of people feeling like they've had to hide. You know, and some people are a little timid. I mean, for the most part, people are like, we're out and we're proud. Yeah. We're nerds. I don't care what you think, right? And that's awesome. But you know, there will still be the few who are reserved and not too sure about how loudly they can express it.
Until they find their friends and then realize it's an epidemic.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's talk of fake nerds. Especially, I've heard a bit of talk of the fake nerd girl. Have you heard any of these rumblings?
The girls that just dress sexy because they want to look sexy, not because they care about the actual costume or genre. That's what that
posers.
Is. I guess.
Right?
Yeah.
Or models.
Yeah.
Well, how does it work? I mean, what's the mind frame behind that? Any idea?
I don't fully understand it. I'm a huge believer in people just being able, you know, if you want to wear that and you're comfortable wearing it, then wear it. Yeah. And you know what? Come to the show. If you're not into that, whatever it is that you're wearing, if you're not genuinely into it, maybe this will help you get into it because now you're at the show, right? And you know, who am I to judge? Who is anybody else to judge?
That's very PC of you. Well done.
It sounds just like denial to me. Like,
it does a little bit.
For example, they chose that particular costume, and you know, the universe of superheroes or what have you is massive. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
So what's next for nerd culture then? You know, as technology evolves and the world gets smaller, what's next for nerd culture?
iPhone covers? No. What I will say is that's the other thing. Like, maybe nerd culture is spreading too because everyone's kind of internalizing. They're going into their technology, which
it's a really
has me a little worried.
I mean, it used to be where only nerds could use computers. You know, only nerds could sit in front of a computer and navigate. See, there you go. Right. Nowadays, everyone's essentially got a little computer in their pocket, so we're all sort of learning the skills for at least base nerddom.
Yeah.
To be fair to say, and I'm interested to see the way it's going to go. Folks, our half hour is almost up. After this quick break, we'll wrap it up and ask our random question. Stay with us.
With the Calgary Comic Expo coming up and nerd culture in general, I think we're almost at the point now where nerd culture shouldn't be called nerd culture anymore. It should just be called modern culture. It used to be a subgenre of something different, and then eventually computers became more and more powerful, programmed by nerds, and now nerds basically rule the world. Nerds are cool now, hipsters are nerds. The difference between hipsters and nerds is a hat. That's pretty much it. I think that in order for things to be more congruent, even jocks like nerd stuff now, so call it what you will, it's just called culture.
Thanks, everybody. Hey, welcome back. We're going to jump right into our random question wrap-up. Now, the way this works, there's 3 pieces of paper there that have 3 questions on them. A lot of the times there's some wacky questions. The odd time, maybe 5%. They're thought-provoking. No, I'm just giving them a hard time. They're actually some decent questions. I'll let you pick the question, if you would, Emily. I'll read it, and we can all weigh in. Oh, usually it's the middle one.
Classic force.
All right, then. And the question is, what do you think about the recent decision to cut programs and budgets from Mount Royal University? Huge topic in local media right now.
Wow.
It is. It is a wow. Brian, what do you think?
I'll say it. You know, I'm a big fan of Nenchin, what he's saying and doing, and he's, you know, putting on his boxing gloves for that. And I would say that, you know, I work at an institution. Yeah. Cutting education is possibly, you know, you see it going on in the U.S., possibly the worst thing you could be doing for the future. It's not long-term planning, you know. I think we need to take care, especially with education, of people. And to be cutting that, and I don't know, what are they spending that difference on, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people's headspace is at currently. I mean, that's just it. I mean, our future is in the knowledge of the generations to come forward.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I mean, the arts.
Yeah.
Come on.
Absolutely.
You would agree then, yeah?
I would definitely agree with that. I am a university educated person and I wouldn't have it any other way. I love the education that I've had and I would do that again in a heartbeat, and I feel very sad that other people might be denied similar opportunities simply because of this.
Yeah. So what are people to do in the school? I mean, you saw what happened with tuition cuts, right? In Montreal,
Yeah.
Pardon me, tuition hikes last summer, I guess, or last fall in Montreal. Huge protests. Huge protests.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that something that's part of the Calgary student culture, do you think?
The students, and at their age, they tend to be the ones who are really good at standing up for their beliefs as you get older, and as you know, you don't want a police record like myself. It starts to become a harder thing to be an activist in that way. But you know, there's a lot of activism that can be done with tweeting. I think that we'll see it go somewhere, though.
Oh, absolutely. And it is really important to have that voice in all of this. I mean, it's putting the students in between such a rock and a hard place. You want this education, and you're being told it's important to have an education, and yet at the same time, we're going to raise the money so you can't afford to have that education, and we're going to make it almost impossible for you to find a job after you get your education, so you can't pay your loans back. Like, let's help the students a little bit here.
Let's help the students a little bit, you know, which is, I think it's commendable. You know, I don't want to be a fanboy, but, you know, the fact that the mayor come out and said, like, hey, you know, guys, this is wrong, let's try and get involved and spread the word a little bit. But ultimately, isn't it up to the students, you know, to make sure that their voice is heard?
Well, you know, they definitely need to share their voice for sure. But I mean, anybody who has any opinion on this, I mean, don't keep it to yourself. That's one of my pet peeves. Is if people have an issue with something, they just sit there and complain about it instead of doing something about it. So get out there and do something about it. Absolutely.
It's very true, isn't it? Folks, our time is up. Thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully we have shed some light on what is indeed what we think an interesting issue. You can keep the conversation going on Facebook and on Twitter. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, let us know. Drop us a line. Take care. Easy.